So yeah, Mingapo na tapawa. Thank you for being here, Jules. I know I was literally just hit start on this, but I'm about to go away and be right back. Sorry for the false start, guys. Be right back. I am so sorry about that false start. I had to go deal with some stuff real quick. So today we're talking about Descendians and the whole concept of that. And so we'll get to that in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. This is, I said I wasn't going to do another video on Brittany Jones unless I process something else. But it's like, I think I thought of some other things that people who haven't been educated on these issues might not understand for the context of why Brittany Jones could be problematic, even if she may or may not have the lineage, right? Because it was confirmed by Bill Dale. Who is the Potomac Tribal Historian Emeritus. I think I forgot to fully introduce myself in here, but you know what? I'm me. Hi. And so I'm gonna roll my little intro video, which has my little song and pictures of my family and stuff, but I'm also gonna do a reaction today to the Sandi Boucher video on Descendians, because I think it really explains a lot. And I'm gonna talk about my lineage and my history as we do that. And before that, I'm just gonna kind of go on a little bit of a ramble about some of these concepts and like the Brittany Jones situation. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like if you've been watching my videos, you're probably following me, but if not, then perhaps if you would watch the playlist link in the description of this video, with particularly the Brittany Jones one, that might explain some of the context if that's what you're missing out on. Or, you know, let me know. I don't know. But you know what I just realized? Like, I don't think I've checked my comments in a long time, so I'm real sorry about that, guys. I need to get on that. I didn't mean to do that to you guys. I've just been going through some shit. I have to explain, well, I don't know how much I can explain, but yeah, like life. But anyway, apologies, because your voice matters. I do feel it's important to keep my comments filtered for my own mental health and for the space and the audience that this page will bring, because I don't want, because if certain people engage with it, the algorithm will, and those comments are posted, the algorithm then keeps pushing the page to certain people. And so when things go in certain directions, sometimes I mentally can't handle certain people engaging in my space, so I don't want that. So I don't, in order to keep it, to keep the engagement low, that's why I do it, because it's not that you don't matter, your voice really does matter to me, but it's because I can't handle a high engagement. I don't want that. This is for me to kind of air my stuff out and for it to reach those who the energy sends it to, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but yeah. Okay, so fucking, I'm gonna actually just roll that intro and just get into it, and maybe this shit fuck of an intro will kind of make sense once we hammer it all out. Yeah.
Winda boneta pava, descendants of Waham Seneca. Seneca is the land of the Powhatan.
You're right, Jules. My audio has been off this entire fucking time. Has my audio been off since my intro? God damn it. Motherfucker. Fuck. Shit. Fuck. It's fine. I'll timestamp that later. This live stream is going great. Should I just restart it at this point? We're here now. This is grape juice, by the way. I am still sober. This is grape juice. Now, what I was saying before, basically, maybe I can word it all better this time. The concepts I'm discussing, yeah, damn it. Fuck. Thank you for being here, Jules, though, because if you were not here, what if I did this whole fucking thing and I never would have noticed if you were not here? Yeah, because that has happened before. I just wrapped it up and redid the whole thing at that point. But anyway, the terms that I'm going to discuss, I don't know the source of. I don't have, I didn't do the best research to go find the original author. These concepts and terms are from ideas, a bunch of people speaking, a bunch of thought leaders speaking in the Indigenous community. Like if you just follow Indigenous TikTok, you're going to find people talking about these things. So it's really a agglomeration, like my summarizing of other people's ideas. I'm not the original source or creator of any of these concepts. I'm just summarizing shit other people came up with. And, well, my interpretation of it, rather. And also, when it comes to the definition of Descendian, a lot of people have different ideas of what that word means, or applies to. Some people, you know, just one aspect of some of the things that I listed would apply to it. Some people, all of it would apply. Some people, it could be a combination, just depends. Or some people would have their own different definition. But typically what I see is when people are talking about a Descendian, they're talking about some version or some combination of someone who claims native lineage very far back. They're talking about typically someone that may have native lineage, but it's often a very small percentage of their ancestry. They're usually talking about someone that had family disconnected multiple generations back, who usually has no culture, language, history, or strong community ties, and someone that often has no lived experience with being Indigenous. And then, mind you guys, though, there are some people, though, that are Descendians, but they're not necessarily, like, by that definition, but they may not necessarily be doing anything to hurt anybody. They just might be somebody who claims a lineage, but they might not necessarily be exploiting off of it in any way, shape, or form. They just talk about their shit, right? That exists, but then there's also what also gets roped into the general definition of Descendian for most people, and what I like to call Descendianism, which is exploiting distant ancestry for a form of gain by misrepresenting identity. And so what does it mean to be Indigenous? So first of all, we've got lineage, community, culture, political status, and then race and ethnicity could be 5 and 6, or just one category, because some people have a different race than their ethnicity, and some people's race and ethnicity are one and the same, if that makes sense, when it comes to people of mixed backgrounds. When it comes to items numbers 1 through 3, these are determined by your community. So your lineage, community, and culture is only what your community can claim and recognize you for. Numbers 4 through 6, or 4 through 5, depending on how you look at it, are colonial constructs and colonially recognized. And so, yeah. So putting it under that nature as well. So typically people who have an Indigenous identity under all of these constructs, you know, are people who, number 1 through 3, not only can prove a current and ongoing, you know, like, so if you have the lineage and the community and the culture, those are ties to your past, right? But then when it comes to the modern, which are ties to the pre-colonial world with lineage, community, and culture, when it comes to political status, race, and ethnicity, that is experiencing the modern constructs of indigeneity under a post-colonial society, right? So a lot of people that may have had a pre-colonial connection have no post-colonial connection to indigeneity. And some people may not have the post-colonial recognitional constructs of indigeneity, but they have the internal community recognition constructs of indigeneity. You know what I'm saying? So let that marinate. So, and if you're confused, just remember that a rectangle can be a square, but a square is not a rectangle. That really made no fucking sense. I'm sorry. But yeah, or it did. I don't know. That was either what the fuck is wrong with me? But so, mind you guys, that's my dad. Okay? But then these are my parents. So, that's kind of my interpretation and my background with everything, if that makes sense. Because it's like, well, you know, these are my parents on their wedding day. But I have this other picture. Oh, here it is. But it's like, okay, if you take this, you know what I'm saying, and you mix that with this, and then you get this. And why is it, if you are indigenous, your parents gave you this haircut? Because I don't know a single fucking person, like, what that person is, they didn't have this haircut at one point. I'm sorry. But anyway, let me see your baby pictures. Tell me I'm lying. I'm just kidding. But they really love giving us that bowl right here. But yeah, fucking, so my dad though, I'll go into his lineage in Two Shakes of a Lamb's Tail. But the reason we're here related to the whole Brittany Jones part before we get into focusing on my shit is, you know, so we did do her genealogy. And I think a lot of reasons that a lot of Powhatans don't relate to her is because of the fact that the documentation doesn't exist for them to verify. But through other means, or what have you, through GEDmatch, William Dale verified the genealogy of Brittany Jones, if I'm not mistaken, from the emails that we have previously covered. And William Dale is the tribal historian emeritus of the Potomac tribe. Jill said your hair looked bad as a kid. I thought your hair looked great. Hair looked great. Well, you got, you know, Did they try doing bowl cuts on curly kids? You know, I didn't think about that. I was thinking of my straight ass hair, you know. Did curly kids experience that horror? Because now that I think of it, every curly kid I knew didn't have that haircut. They had different haircuts. Like, I don't know. Okay, sorry. But with Brittany, you know, so there might be so let's say, you know, she had the lineage. You know, because of Bill Dale's confirming that, right? So you might say, okay, well, if she has the lineage, that means she's native, right? So why would people say, oh, she's not native if she did have an ancestor far back? Because of, if you don't have the community and the culture, because, you know, a lot of people harp on numbers 4 through 6, and I think numbers 4 through 6 matter in terms of only people who have experienced those issues can speak on or represent it, you know what I mean? Like, for example, if you're somebody who is Southern Indigenous, they don't do tribes and reservations the same way as someone who's Northern Indigenous, and So they don't have that same sort of political status construct, but they do still experience racism and have their own xenophobia they experience related to their discrimination as well, but they don't have the same political status aspect as a northern indigenous would, right? So a lot of these aspects of what would it mean to be indigenous, and therefore what would it mean if you're a Descendian or not, qualifies based on each tribe's history. You know, so for example, if you're a tribe like the Powhatans or the Tainos, your lineage from tied to a post-colonial time is going to be from the 1600s and from the late 1400s, mid 1400s. What is it, 1492? Is it 1462? 1492. The fuck is wrong with me? Hold on, let me Google that real quick. Yeah, it's 1492. So fucking, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna have, you know, a different construct and application of these definitions per your own community. So each person and their own family history, mind you, because each community can have a different application of these definitions based on different lineages, based on shit that happened with their lineage. So for example, there was one person in our in a Powhatan family who is not claimed at all because their mother was a missing and murdered Indigenous woman, and after she was murdered, he aided in campaigns. She was kidnapped by other people, but forced to marry his father, I believe, and he was one of the people helping in campaigns that were genociding the Powhatans. And so now nobody from that lineage is claimed because of that one person's history to it. Oh, Jill said his hair was never allowed to grow out because it always angered teachers when I was younger. That's fucking bullshit, man. It's fucking racist. But yeah, fucking, so there's just like these aspects of that, right? Like there are certain people who they're not counted for a reason in the history. And then there's other people who their family disconnection didn't happen by choice. That happened because of genocide and because of people, you know, doing certain things, literally holding them at gunpoint and killing people around them. And atrocities. So how did your lineage get disconnected also can matter in a reconnection journey for tribes as well, because sometimes even though your lineage got disconnected, depending on your tribe, depending on your line, you might have a chance of reconnection with your tribe depending on the community acceptance of your lineage, you know. However, you just because you did have that, for example, that doesn't mean, oh, now I have always had this native lived experience and can go speak for native people. No, this is the beginning of your native lived experience. Like, to a point, yes, all of your life could be that in a way because it is an aspect of genocide, but you can't, if you don't present Indigenous, for example, then you haven't been raised native, then you can't claim, oh, I've always been native, when you don't have the community ties in the culture or anything of that nature, because you wouldn't in those scenarios then have the lifestyle, ways, teaching, worldview, or knowledge that would make your mindset any different, you know, because you're still in the colonial assimilation. You're not living in an Indigenous way just because you just found out you're Indigenous, you know? So that's, I think, the problem a lot of people have with Brittany Jones, you know, because of how she words things, and the facts of her lineage and her history that are public. So, yeah. So I wanted to explain that a little bit more because I feel like a lot of people like who don't understand the way identity works in Indigenous community, they may not understand why there's a problem with her using the identity the way she is. But maybe that explanation, along with the rest of the videos, could help put some of those puzzle pieces together. But yeah, alright. I don't know if that was good or bad or not. But next up, what I want to do is watch this Sandi Boucher video. And I hope she does not mind. She did invite people to respond to her in the video. And so I hope she doesn't mind me doing a video response. I do understand, you know, that I don't really like, because I want to respect, you know, her though, because I didn't get permission to use her video or anything like that. So I really do hope she doesn't mind. But I also thought about asking in advance, but I didn't know what to tell her because I hadn't made it yet to tell her what it was gonna be, because I kind of don't really plan my videos. Like, I'll know what I want to talk about, but I don't know what I'm gonna say. That shit just comes the fuck out of me, which is probably a bad thing. But so yeah, I don't know. So oops. But I am, you know, if there's any issues, I'm more than willing to take on any of this down, of course, because with all due respect, would never want to disrespect her. Even if it's not intended, you know, that could still be the impact. If that were to impact, I would want to mitigate that damage. But I don't know if that came out right. Ugh, I've worked at too many law firms. Damn. See, that's the thing. That's the colonial assimilation. But I think everybody needs a place to process it, right? And here's why I think, okay, before we move on, why I think everybody needs a place to process shit, you know, like why, like if Brittany were just posting on her own personal social media, I wouldn't be posting about any of this. It's the way she's using it for a political campaign that I'm specifically like, okay, now we've got to talk about it. Because when you're a Descendian, processing your shit in your own space, that's where you get the opportunity to get corrected, to learn. You need room to have error, to process your lineage, learn how to discuss it, and everything like that. And you won't do that by keeping it in. And you won't, and some people don't have in their personal life the people that they can just go talk to get the correct, well, not necessarily, I don't know if there's a correct, you know, right or wrong way, but like to get a more decolonized approach on these concepts. So it does sometimes take, you know, bringing this to a little platform where you can get to maybe like your own social media on TikTok or something to get the social consensus on an issue, so you understand how to move in a way that wouldn't offend people or wouldn't be harmful to anybody, or could reduce any harm that could be caused by you processing what could be your lineage, right? So to those contexts, like I think there's a valid place for Descendians to talk about your own family history, process your own family history in your own space, in your own life as it comes out of you. I think that is necessary as a human. But when it comes to using it on the political campaign, saying that, you know, that your heritage, that your native heritage is who you are, and when you don't have that worldview, so it's like, to a point, I understand. Like if you're like if you know, if all of your heritage is who you are and you're mostly European, then wouldn't you understand? You know what I mean? Like, because I'm mostly European, and I know there's a lot of colonialism in me to work through. But you know what I mean? Because my dad's triracial. My mom's European descent. My dad's triracial, European, Native American, and I recently found out my 5th great grandfather is African American. And yeah, so it's like there's these issues to me where it's like you can't just claim, you know, an identity or a lived experience you don't have. And I think that's where a lot of people are drawing the line at her using the identity to try and represent Native Americans in an official capacity. And in this state, there's less than 2% of the population in this state is Native American. So not only are Native Americans already underrepresented because of poverty, because of racial disparity, there's less than 2% of the population there is Native. So any representation that Native Americans get, would be very sparse in my opinion, based on the data there. And for me, it's like, when they're that underrepresented and they have that lived experience being indigenous in Oregon, if there was going to be a Native governor of Oregon, shouldn't it not only be someone who has had a lived Native indigenous experience, but also somebody who understands being indigenous from Oregon? That should be, in my opinion. But it's like, also, like I said before, if you don't have an indigenous lived experience and you haven't participated in your own indigenous community, you've never been recognized as a leader in your own indigenous community, then you cannot expect to lead other people's communities, because you can't have intertribal relations where you don't understand your own tribe. You have no relationship with your own tribe. You have to build a relationship with the tribe you descend from first. Otherwise, it's like tokenizing the identity to go enjoy other people's cultures to gain something, and in this case with the governorship, I think that's like a form of social status. And since she did use the indigenous identity through the presidential campaign, she did earn presidential funds, campaign funds, using a Native identity, like $55,000, I think. And that's a lot of money, like someone who actually has a lived experience being Native could really use $55,000. And she got that, claiming to be Native for her presidential campaign. And I think that's why a lot of Native people really have a lot of problems with her. And so, yeah, and a lot of people who don't understand the concept of Descendianism don't understand why Native people care so much about the rest of the cultural connection, because they think it's gatekeeping. They don't see how it's perpetuating harm. Okay, now we're going to actually get into Sandi Boucher videos. I have linked in the description of this video, this playlist. It's called Pretendians, Descendians, and Cultural Appropriation. Highly recommend. I think you should go watch that, check that out. Let's see here. So I would want to start by watching this video here. It's called Descendians, Indigenous, or Closer to Pretendian. It's linked in the description of this video, and I just gonna kind of play this thing and talk about my own family lineage as we go, because yeah, she just asked questions and I just want to give you, like, you'll see, but it's an amazing video. You can please go watch it without my commentary. Go support her on her page. Her page is linked in the description. That playlist is linked in the description. This video is linked in the description of this video. Please go watch Sandi Boucher's videos on her platform and support her channel, please. So yeah. Okay.
There's a huge difference between talking about someone and talking to someone. So today, I want to do something different. I want to talk to Descendians, not about them, because I have some questions. So let's talk about it. Bonjour, Mishko Paganon, Quain Adishnagas Mung Nodem. Hi, everybody. My name is Sandi Boucher. I'm Red Thunderbolt Woman of the Loon Clan, a proud member of Seine River First Nation in Treaty 3 territory in Northern Ontario, Canada. And it's been in the news for ages. So many Pretendians, people pretending to be Indigenous, or Descendians speaking up for Indigenous. And if you're not sure of the word, Descendian is someone who has some Indigenous ancestry, but it's so far back in their family tree that it really doesn't influence, or it wasn't one of the cultural influences that impact how they look at the world. And there's a really good chance they have no Indigenous lived experience. Now, in some cases, it might be the hiding or the shame of being Indigenous. But as a general rule, the privilege of other cultures has overtaken that one Indigenous puzzle piece. So as I mentioned in the opening today, I don't want to talk about Descendians. I want to talk to them for a moment. And no handy dandy index card today. This is straight from my heart to yours. Often in the realm of reconciliation, which is the world I operate in, often whatever I'm working with an audience on requires unpacking. And what that means is looking at, where is this coming from? So when it comes to a Descendian, in this case, I am specifically talking about that person who has one Indigenous ancestor and it's 4, 5, 6 generations back. And now they're telling people that they're Indigenous, or even in some cases that they have Indigenous ancestry. My first question is why? Why do you want to claim that puzzle piece?
It's hard to pause somebody's face when they're speaking. It just is, it's hard to do it, you know? So, for me, I wanted to talk about, that concept. Oh, we got Augusto speaking here. So, Augusto said, if I'm native from South America, would I still identify as indigenous descendants? Just curious. Well, Augusto, I think you remember you told me, that your grandma was claimed and in tribal community and tribally recognized. So your case, you're still connected through your grandma. So there's that specific, example of that community family tie, right? And so you, and particularly, absolutely not, because which community you come from, where you come from, your lineage, you were raised in your knowing who your family is and having those ways taught to you. And we covered some of the concepts of these definitions earlier. I'm gonna timestamp it later, and everything like that. But this would refer more to somebody who would have no lived experience being indigenous, which you do have. And I've been also talking about what does it mean to be indigenous. And one of the things I also said was, you said that culture changes though. Well, yes, it does change, but I can't speak to your culture. I can only speak to my own. I'm just talking broadly at this time. But your connection to the culture is what counts, and your community recognition. So whether or not you're recognized by your community, which you are, is what's most important, regardless of the changes in the culture, in my opinion. But I do think the culture is what keeps the community together and what makes each community distinct from another community. So that does matter in terms of passing on the ways which would influence your lifestyle and world teaching and worldview and knowledge. And it would make sense that culture changes over time because your culture impacts your lifestyle, and the lifestyle you need to survive changes over time as well. So this I don't think would apply to you at all, Augusto. It's more of applying to people who never knew they were indigenous. They found out one day on GEDmatch And now they are claiming that they've always had a native lived experience, so you can give them money for being native. That's the type of person that is typically referred to when it comes to a Descendian. But sometimes people will call anybody with their lineage far back a Descendian, regardless of the other aspects, the other community ties you have being native, because of their own definition of a Descendian. You know, which could for them simply mean if your lineage is far back, then regardless of if you have these other definitions of being indigenous, some people will still say you're just a Descendian. However, other people will say if you have these other aspects of being indigenous, then you're not a Descendian because you're indigenous. You know, and that Descendian specifically means that you're not indigenous. So, you know what I'm saying? So that can change person to person, tribe by tribe, based on our own genocide, I think. If that makes sense. You know what? These came in handy. Apologies. But, yeah. And Sandi Boucher, the video we had just watched, she had asked a question, why would someone who is a Descendian want to claim their ancestry? And my answer to that question was going to be what I think I just explained, kind of in a nutshell, right? So for me, I go ahead and call myself a Descendian because I'm Powhatan. And so all Powhatan community members, we have to trace our lineage far back to know where we came from originally, right? If you want to trace your ancestry and actually do the genealogy that can confirm for sure through the records who your lineage is. Particularly those who weren't raised connected, but for anybody that needs the verification in order to get enrolled, for example, you know, like if you were doing that, like you would still have to prove it, right? And so by way of our history, even if we have the community ties, the cultural ties, or another form of the lived experience, doing the genealogical records for almost all Powhatans because of the genocide, not all Powhatans, but a lot of Powhatans because of the genocide, there's a lot of mixed Powhatans who are heavily intermixed. And so a lot of indigenous people don't consider a lot of Powhatans native enough. They call Powhatans Descendians. And, you know, they'll call me a Descendian, they call my dad a Descendian. So I'll just go ahead and say, you know what, bitch, fuck it. Then I'm a Descendian. So in that situation, then I feel like you can't ever claim that I am trying to over-represent my indigeneity, you know, but I don't know, maybe that's problematic. Maybe that's because some people are like tell me that it's disrespectful for me to call myself that. Like I've literally been told by my own community members, you know, do not call yourself a Descendian, you're just native, you're just indigenous. Do not call yourself a Descendian. I have people in my, you know, community that do not like it when I say that, because they think it perpetuates a negative idea of us, which is probably valid, and maybe I should recognize that more. But I think the reason that I've been saying it is more like if I just go ahead and say, fine, fuck it, I'm a Descendian, then you can't sit there and try to say, oh, you're not native enough. Bitch, I just told you that I wasn't native enough to you, so go ahead. You know, like, kind of thing. But then some people say that's disrespectful to the experience that I do have, and some people say, oh, I'm not native enough because I look too white. So, really, it just depends on your worldview. You know what I mean? But yeah. Augusto said money for being native. Who? But I get it and good to see you having fun. I appreciate you. Check the Brittany Jones playlist linked in this description of this video, Augusto. Yeah. And I had kind of recapped it a bit earlier, you know, so the timestamps will be added later. But basically, fucking she did get $55,000, I think it was, or over $50,000 in campaign donations when she ran as president under the identity of being indigenous, which is something that a lot of people criticize her for. And now she's running for governor of Oregon under the indigenous identity as well. But yeah, all right, let's watch the rest of this fucking video. Not fucking, that came out wrong. I didn't mean any disrespect to the video. That's just kind of how I talk. Apologies.
Now, and that may sound weird, but there's a lot that goes into that.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. So why do I claim that I'm indigenous though? Because of who my dad is, the experience that my dad has had, because of what my dad has taught onto me. Because for me, my dad, and this is valid with our family history, okay? A lot of people have this experience. So, my dad's lineage was disconnected from our tribe, okay? And my dad's lineage fucking disconnected through genocide, mind you, through, you know, like straight up through assault and through genocide, not by choice. And my community, a lot of Powhatans that experienced that genocide, a lot of them got to stay in Virginia. And those are who reformed and continued as the tribes we know and stay today. But some of us got pushed out. But we're still recognized by the tribes. But the ones that got pushed out, some of us, you know, did manage to stay together somewhat through the community. So there was a lot of intermarriage, which is why my dad has, if you want to get colonial, perhaps, you know, he looks more phenotypically native, you know, why he may have a higher blood quantum because of the intermarriage. Because, you know, my pop has Powhatan ancestry, and so does my dad's mom, my granny. And so, like, the communities still stay together, for example, and it's through multiple lineages. And that's where it's like, but my dad's also European, you know? So, yeah, like, fucking, there's also that, but not everything that was passed down, you know, like not everything could be passed down, but a lot was. And certain things that were missing would be things like we would know who the ancestors we descended from were, and we knew that we were Powhatan, but we didn't necessarily know the specific tribes that some of these ancestors came from. And that's what we had to figure out when doing genealogy for my dad. And my cousin said that it was illegal for years to identify as Native. My grandmother, her mother, and her mother, she had to leave Virginia because of the racial laws, even residential schools, stuff that was shared. Right. And so my dad, he's a boomer. When my dad was born, the Racial Integrity Act didn't end yet. So, you know what I'm saying? So my dad was still under the Racial Integrity Act for his racial definition when he was born. And there's these things like that people really do not understand, like how it impacts our lineages and things. So a lot of people will say, oh, because you were not raised on the reservation, you were not raised with your tribe, you were not raised on your ancestral lands, you're a Descendian, right? Or, you know, like my dad, like he farmed, he planted Three Sisters Way. He loved to hunt deer. You know, like specific things that I feel were passed down to his ancestry. Loved fishing. And for me, it's like, I feel like a lot of people fucking, I don't know. Like the way he always knew exactly who the fuck he was. Like if somebody said, who are you? My dad will say, my ancestors have been here over 10,000 years. Who the fuck are you? You know, and then one day I got to watch this video. I need to link this later in the description. It was produced by Raven Brightwater Costello. It's called Senecomaka Algonquian Oral History. And in the Pamunkey tribal aspect of it, literally, I believe it's Mr. Cook, if I'm not mistaken, who is speaking, and he's, I think, it's Mr. Warren, huh? He was speaking, and he literally said, you know, that we've been here over 10,000 years, and he's watching him, hearing him repeat that was like having my dad say that over and over in my head, you know. And it's like things like that, like different things over the years where it's like it's like he always knew exactly who the fuck he was, you know. And so I feel like sometimes people who are not part of the community will try and put their perception onto your family of what would be a Descendian in their family or in their tribe. But really, I think it's up to each tribe and each family and their lineage to know who is or isn't a Descendian based on their tribal history. And that's why I think we have so much debate about what does it mean to be indigenous and who is or isn't a Descendian, you know? Yeah, that's why I think it's kind of so tough there. All right, let's go back here.
For example, what about all your other puzzle pieces? Obviously.
Okay, mind you though, I claim all of my ancestry. I think that's another thing, okay? I claim all of my ancestry. I make sure people know exactly who the fuck I am. But that's where I think people have a problem with Brittany. Brittany acts like she just found out. Like, I've always known my dad was Native. I've always known this man is Native American. Like, there's never been a time in my life I didn't know that I came from a Native man. Okay? Brittany Jones just found out she was Native in 2021. So I think that's where it was like, and since then, she says she's Native now. She doesn't claim, like, she's not using her European ancestry, which is the majority of her ancestry, in her marketing. It's just, oh, I'm Native now. But she's never connected to the community, never gone back to the community, doesn't know the members, never worked in the community, doesn't know the language, doesn't have the teachings, doesn't have the worldview, doesn't know the ways, and now she's running for governor after she just ran for president and got money for the political campaigns for that. And she also, in a separate aspect of that, was trying to raffle off a car, but she never gave, and I should have mentioned this in my last video, mind you guys, if she should follow up and answer to what happened, because if she was genuinely so desperate that she couldn't give away the car, but she wanted to do it, but then she couldn't follow through with it because of poverty, if she just explained, like, I really did intend on giving this away, but honestly I'm broke and I kind of offered to do something I couldn't really follow through on, and then I panicked and I tried to do it anyway, but then I couldn't. Some people might kind of like think, well, okay, you might be unreliable, but they wouldn't think you're a complete fucking scammer, versus when you say you're gonna raffle off a car and you never do, but you keep the money. Ooh, if that's true, and if that is true, you know, maybe you should answer to that publicly, because yeah, like that, I don't think people are gonna forget about that either. Some people just don't know about it yet. But I feel like that will come back up again one day if it doesn't get resolved, maybe, or something. I would have given people their money back. Like, if I couldn't give away the car, I wouldn't have taken people's money. But it's like, yeah, sometimes I think there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but I think she offers to do things that I don't think she can realistically follow through on.
Neither of your parents are claiming indigeneity, because you had to go that far back in your family tree to find that indigenous puzzle piece. So what's wrong with the cultures of your parents? And see, that's one of the things I'm talking about. I see so many Descendians wanting to claim indigenous ancestry because they don't like being thought of as a colonizer or a settler or a settler descendant. They want to be on the other side of history.
And I think, you know, for mixed people who are colonial descent and native descent, I think that's part of why a lot of us get so offended when someone is, you know, what we would know as a Descendian, because we fight so hard to be anti-racist and to decolonize the parts of us that we know are colonially assimilated because of our traumas associated with the lineage we have, because of the one side of us is different than the other side of us, you know, because this side is not the same as this side. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, so sometimes it's like there's this thing where it's like we fight so hard to overcome those issues, and we have to go through so much because people don't perceive us as native enough because of the other side of us as well, that to see these people do that and then not even acknowledge all aspects of them, it does seem like erasure. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, so first we're going to read, everybody sees this comment. I think people should grow up and get over the race thing. And we are all mongrels, get over it. Everybody sees this comment, right? Okay, now what I want everybody to see is, well, I don't think you can see this, but what we are doing now is we are double high overing over here. I could either, let's see, do we want to put you in timeout? Do you want to, we're going to hide user on this channel. Yippee. That's better. Okay. Yeah. So you see, this is why I said before, I don't want the algorithm putting me in certain places. Hell no. So this dipshit had said, I think people should grow up and get over the race thing. We are all mongrels, get over it. So if you think that people should get over the race thing, then you wouldn't have a problem with Native Americans discussing why white people need to get over racism, right? Because white people are the ones who won't get over being racist. But who the fuck are you calling a mongrel? That sounds a lot like a savage now, doesn't it? But you know, you can talk about yourself however you'd like, but you can keep that shit far the fuck away from here. Hell no. You see, ew, the fuck was that? Can't have that around here. Apologies, that threw me way the fuck off. Let's just keep watching this video.
Rather than owning what their forefathers have done, they want to be on the side of the victim because that seems to be, you know, fighting for the underdog, and they feel disempowered, so they're trying to identify with that. But what they don't understand is the fact that they now want to stand up and claim that puzzle piece with pride. It is really hard to claim indigeneity with pride. Now, I definitely do it.
Right, Jules. What the fuck? Because what the fuck was that comment? But okay, back to the puzzle piece thing, right? So, yeah, man, like, I don't understand when people don't acknowledge all their ancestry. And that, I think, is the key aspect we are all missing here. Descendians, and that's what I think, I just processed it. The key aspect that I think everybody can agree on, everybody has a different connotation of Descendian, but I think what we can all agree on for a Descendian is they misrepresent proximity to community. And they often will use a distant ancestry to get recognition in other communities instead of doing the work to connect in the community they claim. You know what I'm saying? I think that right there, yeah, like that's what everybody, because you know, when they misrepresent their proximity to the community, that I think everybody can get behind. Because the rest of this shit can vary. The rest of this shit can vary based on based on our history, based on our tribes, based on our communities and everything. But misrepresenting the person's proximity, that's the ticket right there. That connects all of it and solves these issues with the discrepancies between us, you know? For me anyway. I don't know. Am I making sense? Yeah, I feel stupid. You know that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? And it's just like, yeah, okay, my bad. Anyway.
It took so much healing to get here. So again, a case of wanting the rhythm without the blues. I am wondering why you want to disregard the other puzzle pieces, why you're not proud of all your puzzle pieces, why you want to identify as a puzzle piece 4 generations back. Now, the problem with Pretendians is because of the benefits. These are people who want to identify... ran out of steam there. These are people who want to identify as Indigenous for what it can get them.
And I think that's Brittany Jones using the identity for her political platforms without doing the work for these other aspects of what it means to be Indigenous is where people see her as somebody who is doing exactly what Sandi is talking about right now, identifying as Indigenous for what it can get you. You know what I mean? And some of us, I have identified as Native and never gotten shit for it. You know, other than fucking kicked in the ass, metaphorically or literally, depending. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Maybe they get to apply for a job that's Indigenous exclusive. Maybe they get to apply for funding that's Indigenous exclusive. Maybe they get to apply for an award or a bursary that's Indigenous specific. That is a trait of a Pretendian, a non-Indigenous person going after the so-called benefits.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, where she's trying to get the accolades of being an Indigenous person without going through the effort it takes to understand an Indigenous world view. Like, that alone, it speaks volumes, I think. I think it does kind of speak volumes to character, you know, because a lot of it I try to give her some grace on ignorance. But now I'm kind of thinking, like, when you look at why is Brittany Jones continuing to do this, because mind you guys, and I'm gonna, maybe we'll watch some of this. Maybe we'll watch, hold on. Okay. Maybe we'll watch some of this, but there's a bunch of videos on Brittany Jones. You know, a lot of people do not like her. A lot of people hate her. Okay? So I'm putting it out there, like, she's had ample opportunity to listen to Indigenous voices, to correct, to change her ways, to go the other way, you know? And previously I was like, because a lot of what they say, even if the reason they are calling Brittany Jones out is so valid, because of everything Sandi's saying, because everything we've been discussing in my playlist, because of all of it, right? Because the fact of calling her out isn't why I'm like, oh no, but it's the a lot of shit they say about Potomacs and about Powhatan history is fucked up, extremely fucked up, and they don't fucking listen to Powhatans on Powhatan issues. And so I get triggered by a lot of this shit. So fucking, I might actually not watch it today. Well, but maybe I will. I don't know. Okay, but here's the thing. So but because of that as well, that's why I thought maybe she wasn't listening to them, because they're so problematic with some of the discussions related to Powhatans in general, that I was wondering, like, maybe she's using, not necessarily using, but maybe that is closing her off, or she could be using it, but maybe that is closing her off genuinely to any idea of listening to them on their thoughts because of the specific things a lot of people are saying. And so, that I could understand to a point, but on another level, it's like when this many people have a problem with what the fuck you're saying. And it's one thing, like when you're a white presenting mixed person, you're always gonna have people say that, oh, I'm not native enough, whatever, fine. They say I'm white, whatever, fine, I am white. I don't deny I'm white, I am white. You can be both. Race and ethnicity are different. My ethnic background is my native background. Racially, I am perceived as white. I do not give a fuck if you call me white. You know what I mean? Like, but it is, my dad is not racially perceived as white. He does not move through the world as a white man. So, there's another thing too, where it's just like, I think that's where she's getting into the problems here, because she moves through the world as a white woman, and she's not recognizing, when people say, you're white, she just keeps saying I'm native, but that's not correct in my opinion, because you can be white and still be native. You can be black and be native. You know what I mean? The racial constructs of white or black does not negate if you're native or not. If you're native. You know what I mean? In my opinion. I don't know. I feel like I'm going a bit too far down that ramble, so we'll get back to our original video here.
That indigenous people have paid, true indigenous people have paid in spades for. So the Descendians that have ancestry way back when, is that why you're doing it? Because that would put you closer to being a Pretendian than it would be Indigenous.
I agree though, because conflating your ties or your proximity to a culture, or acting like that you're more native than you are, I do think that is a form of Pretendianism. Even if you are a descendant, you can still be enacting or engaging in activities pertaining to Pretendianism, when you do things. For example, have you ever seen somebody who, like, let me use this example. There's Manny on TikTok. I am positive this guy must have Indigenous ancestry, because I know that he is Mexican descent, and I know that he is phenotypically Indigenous presenting, and I know the history of Mexico, right? But he doesn't know what tribe he's from, and he's over here trying to lead Lakota sun dances and shit. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So sometimes you can be an actual descendant but still engaging in a form of Pretendianism. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but yeah.
The people I love the most, and I've met several, have identified that they are Indigenous. Their grandmother, their grandfather are Indigenous. But through Canadian history and no fault of their own, they were denied those teachings, and they're now on the beginning of their Indigenous journey. That's just honesty. That transparency is beautiful. And I've yet to meet an Indigenous person that doesn't want to work with someone that's that honest. But if you can't...
And see, if Augusto's still watching, then you can hopefully... Then people like, with ancestry such as him can hopefully see she's not talking about people with, who have actual connections and, like, the actual history to it and everything. Right? Yeah.
If I ask you, so you're Indigenous? Like, what's your community? And you get all bent out of shape and can't answer that question, then maybe you shouldn't be claiming it. I'm not saying deny it. I'm saying, are you the person that should be stepping up and saying you're Indigenous? What is the price you've paid for being Indigenous? What is your Indigenous journey? Have you been discriminated against? Have you been marginalized? What Indigenous influence in your family did you have? Did anyone speak the language? Did anyone practice any customs, not customers? Did anyone attend residential school? Claiming as an identity one puzzle piece 5 generations back is problematic at its core. You go ahead and say you have some Indigenous ancestry. I think it's more accurate to say I'm whatever, and I even have a little bit of Indigenous ancestry way back when. That would be honest. Would also mean that you can't bid for those jobs or that bursary or that funding. I think that would be accurate. I think that would be honest. I think that's what we need to aim for. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think? I would love to hear from you, especially if you're a Descendian, because you got to unpack why you want to claim that puzzle piece. Why? What's wrong with the other puzzle pieces? Because Indigenous is not better than another culture. It's just another culture. We're not going to bring this feather together if we keep insisting that one is better than the other, even when we're trying to say it's Indigenous that is better. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Until tomorrow, I love you. Take care.
I really liked her video. And I really thought that was very important in the follow-up with the whole Brittany Jones discussion and processing of my own. Jill said she's asking and saying the right questions, and I agree, because it's really about getting people thinking, because, and that's why, like, when I look back on the Brittany Jones situation, I keep referring back to that same post where she was saying that fry bread, like, having that before she ever knew she was Indigenous, she ate fry bread and she jingle dress danced. I don't know who the fuck let her jingle dress dance, but she said she did, and fucking, because it's like it to me that's not. But she said she was saying that some people were claiming that she wasn't connected to her culture, but because she ate fry bread and jingle dress dance, she was, and that's not Powhatan culture. Fry bread's from Navajo culture, jingle dress is Anishinaabe. And so for us, we would be eating gapone, which is Powhatan cornbread, or we would be, having our own Eastern woodland regalia, and we have our own dances and things, with that nature. And then, yeah, sure, you might see some jingle dress dancers, at powwow or whatever, but that's not technically still connecting to the Powhatan culture. That's not a Powhatan thing. And so for me, it's like, there's nothing wrong with if you're not Navajo eating fry bread, but it's about, acknowledging where it fucking came from, right? Like, I know also different tribes can have different recipes for their fry bread, so I'm not saying, obviously that's different too, but you know what I mean though, right? Yeah, fuck it. So that's my thing, like, yeah, and for me, when I have my dad and I look the way I do, a lot of people don't think that I'm native enough, and they call me a Descendian just because my mom is white. And so some people, it's like you can be one generation not mixed enough, not native enough, not pure blood enough, not enough blood quantum, and then they call you Descendian based on that. And so one thing I also appreciate about Sandi is she's made a lot of posts as well to follow up with. It's not about the blood quantum. It's not about just how far back the lineage is. It is literally about all of these different elements, that we've been discussing of what goes into making an Indigenous worldview and giving you an Indigenous perspective. And for me, like, part of the reason that I like to kind of sometimes say I'm a Descendian is literally just because I don't want to act like I have more of a native worldview than I do, because I don't feel like I don't know what's enough to, I feel like even though I have my family recognition and I'm on my journey with the community recognition, with the relationships I have with my cousin, with the path I've taken of getting my lineage confirmed by enrollment offices from the tribe I descend from the path I've taken with learning the language, from these different paths, and I'm so glad I've built relationships with my cousins. But it's like, I don't know if any of that means that I've done enough to be Indigenous, to say that, oh, I'm Indigenous enough, you know? And I don't know if, you know, just because my dad experiences racism, you know, does that then mean, hey, now we're Indigenous enough? Because, yes, to a point, I agree with Sandi, like, being Indigenous comes with a price, and so if you can't name the price you paid for it, it's like you probably didn't have a lived experience, right? But on another level, there is more to being Indigenous than just the racism. So just does that alone mean you're Native, right? Or something, right? Like, I don't know, am I making sense? Like, but again, I think that then ties back down to the semantics and the elements of what we were discussing before, and the differences as well between the community recognition and the colonial structure or recognition of what does it mean to be Indigenous. And then also, one more thing before we wrap it up as well. I've seen a lot of people comment on Brittany Jones that if you're not an enrolled Native, that means that you are just not Native at all. And again, mind you guys, I believe that ties to colonial recognition. And so to a point, it does matter, because if only like anyone with a lived experience on each of these issues can speak on what it means to have that lived experience on the issue, right? So I, for example, cannot speak on what it's like to be a racially presenting Native person, but my dad can, for example. So the captioner said my dad can't, but I said, but my dad can. He is able to. Anyway, the captioner hates me. Fucking. So so like you can have if you do not have the lineage, you're not then you're definitely not Native, okay? Because by definition, like, you have to have Native ancestors to be Indigenous, in my opinion. With a caveat, I guess, because there's also, you know, if you marry into an Indigenous family, sometimes you get enrolled and then they claim you're Native. Or if you get adopted into an Indigenous family, then you may be enrolled and then they raise you as Native, you know? So sometimes you may not even fucking have the technical lineage, but you could still be considered Indigenous, right? But there's these different, well, honestly though, not every person that marries in, because I know a lot of people that marry in and they really advocate for only Native people speaking on these issues, and I appreciate the fuck out of them. But I know some people, a certain type of people, who will marry into Indigenous tribe and they have no Indigenous ancestry, and when they marry in, they get in their enrollment card and then they want to culturally appropriate everything and act like they're Native and claim they're Native now. And it's like, that's kind of disrespectful to the ancestry, in my opinion. But some people have a problem with, like, it's just because, you know, anyway, but that's a different story. Apologies. But my thing is, there's a lot of aspects to being Indigenous. It's not just a single facet. And, you know, it's so, I think that's also where the semantics of is Brittany Jones Indigenous gets confusing as well, and so does the ways people try and call her out. But the video that Sandi did is amazing. And mind you guys, I was gonna show you my lineage, but I didn't even fucking do that. Oh, let me turn off this captioner. But basically, you know, like, and all, like, so no matter what, you will not find, like, all of these ancestors until are documented under the colonial assimilation of the United States. You will not find out the homeland of any of my ancestry until I go back this far, because I descend from either the first Native American, like, not the first, the first colonizers of the United States is what I meant to say, like, the first, like, literally the worst fucking colonizers of them all is what I descend from. Either the first fucking colonizers of the United States, or the Native Americans that experienced the brutality of that colonialism. I have a lot of Native ancestry documented there. Or my dad does have some African American ancestry on my dad's side. My mom's side, all colonizer. But my dad's side, that's what it is. You have to go back this far to figure out where the fuck I came from, whatever way it is. You know, so some people, when they see me click through my family tree to show you, you know, who some of these ancestors are, they're like, well, that means that you are now a Descendian because you had to go back that far to figure it out. And it's like, no, because I didn't have to go that far to figure it out. Here's my dad right here, bitch. It's just that I have to go back that far to find a post-colonial context for the documentation of who my native ancestors are. But anyway, so a lot of people who are someone who may be Powhatan or Eastern Woodland like that within the constructs of United States America, I don't know Canadian history well if it matches or is different there, but or I happen to be a little bit familiar with Taino ancestry just because my niece is Taina. And some of my closer friends happen to be Taina. So they, you know, put their history on me. But yeah, so I know that the Taino history is very similar as well, where because of the colonialism and everything, if you want to trace to their pre-colonial ancestry, that's how far back they got to go, right? But the key there, all of us still, though, we can still point to, oh, this is my dad, or oh, my grandma, you know, just like Jules was saying, or just like Augusto was saying, like their grandmas, you know, or, you know, like, because who are enrolled, mind you. Well, not Jules. Jules' grandma's enrolled. Augusto's grandma is Peruvian, so theirs is different. But, you know what I'm saying? But that's the thing. It changes across the diaspora. And so I kind of wanted to put that into context too, because sometimes if, you know, you're from the Western, one of the Western communities, you wouldn't have to go that far back for a post-colonial context for your ancestry. So it would be weird for you to go, you know what I mean? Because of the dates of which your ancestors, like for lack of better words, may have gotten fucked over by the colonial institution. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not using the right words here, but read my mind. And yeah. And I was going to wrap it up here, but fuck it. Might as well. Let's look at some of these videos here. People really fucking hate Brittany Jones. So this one right here says Brittany Jones is not Native American.
Up there that's highlighted in yellow.
I can tell that they're speaking in the video, but I cannot tell what the fuck they're saying. Let me turn my computer volume up more. And so back in the day, I might have to try restarting this.
Up there that's highlighted in yellow.
Oh, this is a long video. God damn it. Okay.
Is for Indigenous heritage.
Greetings, fans of BJ. Welcome to anthropology class. A lot of people are kind of confused, like they don't recognize what that is. I got you. Don't worry about it. You are getting, for free, the benefits of my education. Just so we're all clear, this is a direct printout of what she just said. Now, she is right. That is for Amerindian. I want you to look at two things. Number one, the number of blanks. Number two, how small those numbers really are. I'm Indigenous, but I'm mixed, so I can't really use my own DNA as well as I can use this person right here. This is a printout of the MDLP study. I ran somebody through the K11 admixture, which you can see is the same one that she used. My volunteer also has tiny numbers in the Amerindian category. Now you see how some of them are blue, sometimes dark blue in here? The higher the number, the greater chance of accuracy that you're part of that group. Our volunteer is a combination mostly of Neolithic, early hunter-gatherers and a different hunter-gatherer. My volunteer is 100% Scandinavian. Never set foot on Turtle Island before. Everyone before them never set foot here. So why are there really tiny amounts of Amerindian? Every test has a certain number of reference populations. What each study does is it separates everything into a given number of categories. In that case, 11 different categories. And the general category of Amerindian is where they stick everything where the person fits their categories. Sometimes in those tests, you will find overlap in groups that you don't really belong to, but you share genetic material. So our Scandinavian...
So that's interesting though, because honestly, I don't really understand a lot of this DNA shit. It's not that... yeah, it is. I don't care about it. It's not to mean that in a rude way. I just don't give a fuck about the whole, like, blah, 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 sciencey DNA chromosome thingy. Like, you know what I know, though? Okay, I know a joke. It's a pickup line. If you were if you were DNA and I were an enzyme, I'd want to be helicase so I can unzip your genes. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I got for you. But so I had said when I was speculating, one of the reasons there could be a difference between what I found in the ancestry and what was verified by Bill. I had literally said it could be possible to have the ancestry but no documentation due to assimilation or genocide, which would explain the DNA without a paper trail. And if we look at the genealogy for the records I did find, if it were very minimal or if it did happen through genocide, that could also explain some of those numbers here if that were true. But I don't know shit about these little DNA test things, and I don't know if that's... I can't speak to the accuracy or the veracity of any of this fucking shit. But we're just watching it.
Volunteer, who is very definitely a white lady, does have a tiny bit of Amerindian crossover. They're a native Scandinavian, and anything...
Oh, yeah. But what if that DNA segment isn't from... here's an alternative theory. What if it's not from her having native ancestry, but it's because of common colonizer ancestry shared with the native community, because there were ancestors of her documented that did commit genocide and sexual assault against our tribes. So what if the reason that percentage DNA was there was because those colonizers who committed genocide and raped some of our tribal members, who some of us descend from, are what we share in common? What if that's it?
Under 5% can be basically attributed to junk data. Everything you see here is white, and a tiny percentage, if at all. Why is this? All of the areas where she's blue, she covered. It's all the same white lady that our Scandinavian friend is. Why'd you cover up who you are, Brittany? Is it because your chart looks like this? Tiny bit of Amerindian. Junk data. Show the pie chart, Brittany. Show your true colors. I ran off a copy of the MDLP K11 database for comparison, because the second part of that video has such a chart, but it wasn't the K11. The K11 doesn't break it down by tribe, but the MDLP K23B does. This chart is just the reference database for that study. It has nothing to do with anybody's DNA, including mine, including yours. I don't remember, did you mention Apache in your video? How about Cree? Great granny on my dad's side was Métis, Cree and French. Look at that number. Did you mention Mayan, Mexican, Mexican CV, Miwok, Mixe, Mixtec? That's the reference chart. That's not your DNA. My personal favorite was the Ojibway. I know what that is. That's me. And I'm not a what. I'm a person. And here I am on this chart. Pay attention to the numbers. If that was actually your DNA, or mine, nobody's that much indigenous. That is hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of %. The math doesn't math. Your receipt isn't your DNA. At least the second one isn't. That's a straight up lie. And this one's covering up the truth of who you are. You see, my volunteer here is an immigrant. And I'm extremely happy to share my homeland with immigrants. But I'm not happy about you. You're misrepresenting yourself, and you're causing damage to the Indigenous community in doing so. See, being a Pretendian causes dark-skinned people to not trust you. Please note my pale face. I look Ojibwe. My bone structure, my hair, my apple shape, my bannock ass. I got some bleach in the gene pool, that's all. Like I said, on my dad's side, great-granny was Métis. On my mother's side, grandma was white. The skin tone's a genetic lottery. Whether I won or lost depends on your perspective. Now, my wallet was stolen, so I don't have a treaty card. I had to order a new one. It takes 4 to 6 months. Thanks, government. But they do give you a temporary certificate if you want. See that embossed seal? Signed by the registrar. Pretendians like you make dark-skinned people distrust. The level of racism that they experience, it's understandable, but it becomes lateral violence. Ask that Nietzsche you're shacking up with if he ever has racism from white people and then distrust from brown people. Go ahead, ask him, because I can guarantee you are leveraging his indigeneity to boost your platform, and it's not okay. I tried to tell him he wasn't having it. That's okay. Maybe he'll listen now, because if he wants a relationship with you, power to him. But he needs to know the truth, because you are perpetuating racism. You are perpetuating lateral violence that hit him just as hard as it hits any other light skin. Who are you really? How many Indigenous people besides me sent you money? How much have you taken from my people under false pretenses? This is a white person. This is you. And this is just a population chart. You want to run for any kind of office, the very least that you owe your constituents is the truth about who you are. I reject you. Your own so-called receipts taught me who you are. I don't care about getting my money back. You can keep it. It's probably spent, whatever. I do very much care about my people and all the Indigenous people of Turtle Island, including that errant brother that you're shacked up with. He's still my brother. And if he has any questions, he's welcome to contact me. I'm going to assume he didn't know because benefit of the doubt, but you knew. You fucking knew, because if you didn't know, you wouldn't have covered it up. Big red letters, hiding the truth.
You fucking knew is the Chelsea Hart thing.
Ego up, man. Oh, P.S. I have a science playlist that has a really long but detailed breakdown of what everything means. I'll see you there.
So, I have called out Star because I find a lot of her other comments towards the Potomac tribe extremely problematic, and it really pissed me off. But I respect her right to, make these videos and support all that. So, let's see.
This time, the rumors are true if you've heard them. I am dropping out of the race. Not because I don't feel like you guys are not worth fighting for, but it's to the point where the collapse of the American government is going to happen. There's no way around it. And I'm going to let the white people tear each other apart. In the meantime, I'm going to be organizing groups and community spaces so that when it does fall, we can rise up and take it for ourselves before anybody else gets to, and we might have to.
What do you mean rise up and take it for ourselves? Who is we? You know what I mean? And do you not recognize you're also still white? Now, there's no problem with being white and being against white supremacy and speaking out against white supremacy and being mixed white presenting, can be a struggle to speak about and articulate your issues with white people in this society. But there's a difference as well between, just expressing disdain for the white constructs of society and some shit that's happening versus completely denying or separating or distancing yourself as well from also being white when you are in this society presenting as white. Um, and have had a lived experience based on your whole life just being a white woman. It is, you know what I mean? Like, that's the fact. Like, that's how you're perceived. Um, so, yeah, I think that type of wording could be problematic because it's like, if at this point, that's during her presidential campaign back in 2023, 2024 type shit, I'm guessing. Um, it's like when you're just beginning your stage, if you just found out that you had indigenous ancestry and you may just be beginning to reconnect, there's nothing wrong with wanting tribal sovereignty if that's what you meant, but the wording doesn't necessarily specify that. So some people could perceive that as like a movement for another form of like some sort of colonialism, or arguing for some sort of disruption to the current state that would not align with tribal sovereignty or be the same as returning to tribal sovereignty, because what do you mean take it for ourselves? Like, that wording is a bit problematic, and a lot of indigenous communities never saw land as something we own, which is why that wording is so not in value alignment with something an indigenous person with an indigenous worldview would say, in my opinion. But that's just me. But yeah.
Stand up against the Heritage Foundation, but we will see. It's just not worth it fighting for people who are voting blue no matter who, or MAGA. They're in a cult. They're completely brainwashed. They bully. And
so previously she was running as independent for president, right? And when she was running for independent for president, now she's saying, she didn't like people who voted blue no matter who. But now she's running blue, running for Democrat for Oregon, and she put in a Reddit thread that independents were the worst. Isn't that interesting? And there's nothing wrong with changing over time. Your mind can change over time. Who you are changes over time. But I do think that people could perceive that sort of political flip-flopness in a short time span as not necessarily stable in the processing of your journey with your political goals,
And belittle and attack anyone who wants to vote third party. They admit they are voting for evil, but refuse to see how that makes them evil. No matter how many times you educate them, more and more people are ready for a revolution in this country. We won't have to wait long for our chance. Once the government collapses, their laws are no longer enforceable. This time, the rumor.
Yeah, I don't understand. So I see a lot, and not only her, but I see this a lot. So many times I see when people talk about decolonizing in our society and against the American government, they never say, let's allow Native Americans to have their tribal sovereignty back. They always say, well, we need to revolt and burn it down and take it for ourselves, and they always just want to replace it with another colonial leader. They don't want to have tribal sovereignty. And that's why to me, it's like, how is that the type of thing you're saying? Like, let's rise up for this new organization. What? Because for me, it's like, if you're Native and you're trying to organize politically to fight colonialism, the only organization you should be fighting for is your tribal sovereignty. And I don't understand, why you're trying to. I don't understand the logic in whatever this path is, or whatever goal she's trying to get, whatever she's trying to do. I can't wrap my mind around it because I don't comprehend it. It's just never. It's something I could never do, would never do. So I don't understand what the fuck she's doing, But yeah.
Yes, Brittany Jones has been claiming indigeneity all the way since last year whenever...
Oh, god damn it. Did I just realize... Was I muted the whole time for that? Fuck. I'm sorry if I was muted the whole time for that, y'all. I just realized. I'm not sure if I was if I unmuted or not. Wow, that really sucks for me. Well, I guess you're getting the deaf lived experience if that was muted and you can read the captioner then. I don't know. Because, shit, what the fuck did I say, man? Fuck, my bad.
I actually thought I wanted to support her. So please, spread this. It's bad news, man.
Yeah, so someone said, wait one fucking minute. Is she trying to say she's native when she isn't?
Brittany.
Like, what the fuck? I tried clicking to see if it will take me to the comment, but it's not doing that for me.
I was one of the bridesmaids. In
that didn't work.
Viral.
When I tried clicking the bottom, that's where it took me for some reason. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. The captioner says, keep digging and you'll find all the native folks Brittany Jones personally took advantage of and profited. So, you know, a lot of people are saying that, and for the reasons I think that, I've discussed before, I'm assuming. Okay, so here's what someone else posted. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is a post from Brittany Jones that they are reposting. And it says, so I found out, because the beginning of it is cut off, but it says on the overlay, are you sure you're native, Brittany Jones? And it says, so I found out recently I am mostly Welsh, had no idea. I had always thought I was primarily Irish and Scottish. Wales was largely unaffected by the witch trials, etc. that swept Europe, but I'm not sure where to start learning about the actual practices of my Welsh ancestry. I can read history all day, but would love a book about Welsh witchcraft if anyone has one they could recommend. I did search the grid for Welsh witchcraft, but did not see what I was looking for. Trying to clarify, I'm not looking for history books, more like spell books, ritual books, etc. Is it Celtic, magic, etc.? Yeah. Ah. So it shows her DNA, and it says Wales 21%, Scotland 20%, England and Northwestern Europe 19%, Germanic Europe 14%, Ireland 10%, Sweden 9%, Norway 7%. It says additional communities: Lower Midwest and Virginia settlers, Potomac River Valley and Central Kentucky settlers, Kansas and Southern Nebraska settlers. And it's got clown music. Okay. So, yeah. I don't know where they got that DNA test. I mean, I guess they got the DNA test from for her, but yeah, so, okay, so, Jules said, remember when she tried doing the same with our culture on TikTok and adding him? Yeah, so, we think that she may be trying to utilize, like, Jules for proximity in a way, potentially. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, she's does keep tagging Powhatans online, and we wonder if that is from, like, trying to create a sense of proximity. Okay, let's see what this person's saying.
Boucher, you know what really irks my nerves? Finding out that there is a Pretendian trying to run for office. Then said Pretendian, claiming that they are a descendant of Matoaka. Also, to use their position to attack indigenous peoples. Tell me, where are you Indigenous? Boucher, you know what really irks my nerves?
So, he might love my playlist. I can't even address this video because then it's just reviewing every fucking thing. We're going to be talking in circles and here all day. But the genealogy is already covered. whether or not she's claimed, like how she was claimed, the proof of that is covered. Everything has been covered already, so just go watch the fucking playlist. But basically, in a nutshell, she is claimed by the Potomac tribal historian. And if the Potomac tribal historian emeritus claims her, it is not my place to argue with the Potomac tribal historian emeritus about who is or is not Potomac. A lot of people who are native have a lot of intense feelings about Matoka or Pocahontas. But mind you guys, a lot of Powhatans believe, like that if you're not related to Matoka, you shouldn't even be using the name Matoka, because we believe that people who are not related to her using that name could cause harm to her. That was a private name. Her public name would have been Amanote or Pocahontas. Calling her Amanote or Pocahontas would have been more appropriate for most people. But I don't mind when natives call her Matoka, but I do not like it when white people call her Matoka, and I do not like it when natives try to tell white people to call her Matoka, because we believe that literally caused harm to her. Like, we don't believe that strangers are supposed to know your personal name, because then they could use that for causing harm to you through things, like whether it be a spell or anything. But for lack of better words, for English translation as well. But yeah, so that's another thing to contend with. But there's like a lot of TikTokers online that have pushed this whole narrative that Pocahontas is a fake name and Matoka is her only real name, and that's not the truth at all. There are different debates about whether or not she was born as Amanote or Matoka, and I think, because she's known as being born as Amanote, but I think the reason being is because of the public image versus the private image. So even if her born private name was Matoka, she had another name, because we also had different naming ceremonies. Her public name was Amanote, and that's how people knew her by first, if that makes sense. I don't know. I probably did not read that right as well at all. I meant to say that was the reason why people get confused about which of her names is her first given name, or you know what I mean? That either helped or did not. Sorry. Okay, let's keep going. I
wish you would come over and
Oh, you know what? This is a whole different Brittany Jones. So that's not our Brittany. That's not the same Brittany Jones we were talking about, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I hit the back button. So we watched this one. Oh, now they're showing in a different order than they were before. That's interesting. Okay, let's watch her speaking at a Portland City Council meeting.
Hello, my name is Brittany Jones. I am a Democratic candidate for Governor of Oregon, founder of the Ravens Party, and a PLRC for District 50 for the Multnomah County Democrats. I'm mixed Indigenous of Potawatomi, Mexican, and Welsh descent, and I'm here to talk to
So that's where a lot of people have problems with her using the Potomac identity in this official capacity this way. And another thing, in the European construct, they might say Patawomac, but I believe a lot of people I know pronounce it Potomac. And I've said Patawomac before, but I don't know. But I think that alone, like how it's pronounced there, kind of can show your connection to the tribe, in my opinion. But I just, it's like, who gave you permission to represent Potomacs or Native Americans in a capacity as governor of Oregon? She claims that Bill Deo endorsed her for that. I never saw proof of Bill Deo's endorsement, so I don't know if he did or didn't. If he did, she never posted the proof of it. But if he didn't, he never denied it, and she keeps saying it. So if I were him and I didn't endorse her, but she kept saying that I did, I would correct it. So maybe he did, But I still believe, like, even if she has his confirmation and blessing that yes, she is a descendant of the tribe, I still believe that she should be putting more effort and work into connecting with community members, getting the blessing of the elders, getting the blessing of the chief, before putting herself in a position like this and doing the work to understand the Potomac culture, history, knowledge, and everything, and connecting with the community first, learning her ways first, getting an Indigenous worldview first before she introduces herself as an Indigenous person for the governor of Oregon. Because that's what leads to the whole Descendianism issue here. Because yes, in this concept, you know, if you just have the some of the lineage without the community, without the culture, without the racial and ethnic the understanding of these issues and things like that, you know, if you don't have these lived experiences, then you're not the person who's qualified to then introduce yourself as an Indigenous woman running for governor, in my opinion. I do think, you know, because you only meet, you're just now on your beginning an Indigenous journey, but you don't have the world lived experience yet if you just found out a few years ago the lineage, you know. That's my opinion. And I think that's where people, you know, see this as potentially a form of misrepresenting the identity and the connection and the proximity to being Indigenous or having an Indigenous perspective could be through her you know, appearances such as these and her statements such as this and what have you.
Today about ICE. But I want to start with a reminder that if you are of European descent, then you are a descendant of illegal immigrants. Even if your ancestors didn't directly steal land, you are actively benefiting from stolen land.
So I hope she recognizes that for herself as well, because she is majority European as well.
Benefiting from
as am I.
Genocide and forced assimilation of our community, benefiting from the death and enslavement of the Black community, and benefiting from the low-cost labor our Southern relatives provide. With that being said, Indigenous People Day is a state-recognized holiday. Yet this year, our community had to gather outside of the ICE facility to take a stand for our stolen relatives. ICE does not have the authority to detain citizens, and yet they have detained an elder multiple times, one time cutting off her bra and stealing her skirt. They have detained a 17-year-old Two-Spirit and stole his flag, pinning it to the wall like a trophy. Just a few days ago, they seemed to flashbang protesters.
So the rest of this speech, you know, are important issues to be spoken out on. And if she were to just be speaking out on these things without trying to represent herself as being more Indigenous than she is, then I think a lot of people would appreciate her using her voice for these things. And I think it's all important to speak on. And I think, you know, it can be good to want to do that. But I think, you know, that's when you look at where she goes wrong, it's the conflation of her identity.
People gathered to exercise their First Amendment right, talking among themselves, some even wearing inflatable animal costumes, and I know how terrifying that might be for some of you. So I want to ask you a question that I hear every time I have delivered supplies to camp, every time I have stood shoulder to shoulder with my community. Where are our leaders? So I want to ask you, where are you? What are you doing besides signing papers? Because our community knows all too well how little a signed piece of paper means to your government. Today, if any of you plan to vote no, I come here to make...
So maybe she said, where are our leaders? And she's introducing herself as an Indigenous woman. Maybe she doesn't perceive, because Oregon has less than 2% Indigenous population. So because she's not part of that Indigenous population of Oregon, perhaps she's not therefore in community with that community to know who the actual Indigenous leaders of Oregon are potentially. That could matter if that would be like why she didn't see the Indigenous leaders of Oregon or know what they're up to or know where they are or what their focus on is right now. Otherwise, I can only assume perhaps she wouldn't see them if she were engaging in spaces that they wouldn't be a part of, you know, and that would be the colonial space. But yeah, I still feel that it takes away representation because an actual Indigenous person could have been speaking on these issues, you know, but instead we have somebody who may have ancestry as verified by the tribal historian, but has never met the community members of the tribe, doesn't know the language, wasn't raised in the ways, doesn't know the teachings, doesn't know the history, the ancestries real far back. I feel like, it's missing a lot there.
Demanding that you join us, that you stand with us until you are tired, cold, hungry, and thirsty, and then stand with us longer until ICE gets bored and irritated, until you get tear gassed, shot with rubber bullets, and flashbanged. Then take what you learned and use it to make change, to see why keeping ICE from being militarized is important, and why we must keep the Guard from deploying in our city. Silence is compliance, compliance is complicity. If you are not willing to leave...
And here's another thing, a lot of the things that she says are really good with the human rights issues, that if she were not doing some of these things, like utilizing Native identity the way she was, or if she hadn't, did the thing with the whatever happened with the SUV vehicle thing, giveaway raffle, I don't know, whatever, like things like that, like if certain things weren't happening, then a lot of the rest of this is so good, a lot of people would vote for that, right? And I think that's how she keeps getting a lot of people who are supporting her, because she does have good words on social issues to obtain a mass appeal audience. But then there are these other things about her that are like contradictory. For example, she claims to be a witch, a pagan witch, as well as Native American. Those two things are contradictory in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot about her that's polarizing as well, that is why people, that even though she does have these things, because of this, that's not enough,
From the front, then step down to allow someone who is willing to fight for us to take your place. Turning a blind eye, hoping it goes away, won't work with a fascist wannabe dictator in the White House. Thank you.
And it said Jones 26, together we rise. But yeah, fucking, there's a lot to process there. But I think we can all see why it may not have gotten very far. So let's see. Next, what's this one?
My fellow Americans, I am honored to stand before you today as a candidate for the 2024 presidential elections. My name is Brittany Jones. As a proud witch, a pansexual woman married to a woman, Indigenous, and a veteran, I bring a unique perspective to this race. I'm running for president because I believe in the power of transparency, accountability, and government reform. Our government has strayed from its original purpose of serving the people, and I am committed to bringing it back to its core principles, to ensuring that our government serves the people and not special interests. As an Indigenous person, I will hold space and amplify voices of those.
So at this timeline, though, she had found out, I believe in 2021, what her genealogy was. But am I not mistaken? Why do I think it may have been 2023 that was when she got her lineage confirmed? Or am I getting things confused? But in my opinion, either way, she just literally is getting her lineage confirmed, from the tribal historian emeritus, but without doing the other work to reconnect to the culture and the community and work in the community for the tribal sovereignty. She's now saying that she's a Native woman now. And on top of that, she's also saying a lot of rhetoric about white people, saying I'm a Native woman and white people are illegal immigrants. And she's also not necessarily seeming to process that her ancestry is majority white, so she's still white even if she did have any Native ancestry. So there is something there. And so I feel like, yeah, a lot of all of this, it takes a lot of processing to understand the issues here. And because she hasn't given herself that time to process any of this before she speaks on it, she's saying a lot of problematic shit that is turning a lot of people against her. And so the best thing she can do would be to go reconnect in private before trying to run any more public campaigns, platforms off of any sort of Native identity, as well as putting in the work to repair the harm caused to the community over these actions as well.
Suppressed for far too long, and I am committed to the fight for all Americans' rights, regardless of background, race, sexual orientation, gender expression, or religious affiliation. As a pansexual woman married to a woman, I know the importance of LGBTQ plus rights, and I will work to ensure the equality of all Americans, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Love is love, and it's time for our government to fully get on board and respect and celebrate the diversity of our nation. Upon being elected, I will enact executive orders to protect transgender rights, drag queen rights, and marriage rights for all. One of my top priorities as a practicing witch is to ensure the complete and clear separation of church and state, so that no religion or belief system is given preferential treatment by our government.
Okay, I think I've spoken on this concept before, but I think that's also interesting because that's also contradictory with pre-colonial ways for our people. And so, because when you're indigenous, for us, our political system and our spiritual system can be tied together because, like, for example, we had our chiefs, but our chiefs were advised by our spiritual advisors. And we also had our higher chief who also had lineage of spiritual advisors, and who the spiritual advisors, he would literally, like, he couldn't make decisions without the spiritual advisors, because it was kind of believed like that if what our leader did wasn't in line with our spiritual advisement, that wasn't in the best interest of the people. So they had to get the spiritual advisors on board to continue. And it's, theoretically, though, he did have the power to overrule and do whatever the fuck he wanted anyway, and that could happen. But for the most part, that it would have to be like in the good of the people. That these were the ways, the traditions, past kind of structural system, what have you. And it's like, so this whole separation of church and state comes from the colonial world, where that's necessary because the colonizers want to force Christianity on you, for example. But indigenous people aren't trying to force their spirituality and their ways onto other people like that. And so for me, it's like those types of things just don't apply, like, at all. But I also don't understand it because I want to restore tribal sovereignty, and for me that means trying to return our tribe to pre-colonial ways as much as it works for the tribal lifestyle. Like, I would love to see a return of those types of structures again. So I kind of have much different perspective on all of these concepts than her, and I don't know.
I believe that everyone should have the freedom to practice their own faith, or no faith at all, without the interference from our government and our legislative process, which we see happening today with the unconstitutional laws being passed in many states. As a military veteran, I understand the importance of a strong and responsible military and national defense. I will work to bring transparency and accountability to our military and our military operations, and ensure that our troops are only deployed when there is a clear and justifiable need. I will also prioritize the well-being of our service members and veterans, rather than being engaged in endless wars that only cost more lives. Not only that, I will work to remove the undue influence of special interest in our government, to ensure that our government serves the best interests of the people and not corporate donors. Together, we can create a government that is transparent, accountable, and representative of all Americans. My vision for America is a country that is by the people, of the people, and for the people, as it was originally intended. I humbly ask for your support and vote, and I promise to be a tireless advocate for the American people as your president. Join me in making history, and together we can make America whole at last. Thank you, and may we embark on this journey to bring about positive change for our nation, united and determined. Vote Jones, 2024.
fucking muted again. Fuck. Literally all I was saying is you can't make shit smell better. It just decays until it goes away. So I just don't believe America can be made better. I just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't believe it was ever meant to be great. It's running the way it was supposed to. It's built on native genocide. All I believe is in tribal sovereignty. Yeah, don't you hate that I keep fucking muting myself? It's so frustrating. It is so fucking frustrating, man. Like, at least I recognized this time. And honestly, this time I recognized it before I even saw your comments. Yay me. But yeah. Okay. Because there are times where I don't even see it before I see them commenting is how I realize, you know? But yeah. Fucking, let's see, there's a few more in here to go through, but when every time I go forward and come back, I feel like I'm not seeing the same ones or them in the same order. This is like, I just have the urge to click on this, so we are. Someone said she didn't say she was native. I don't get the point of this video, like, get a life, little buddy. Okay, in my videos, you'll see she's claimed it all the time. So, yes, she did. We literally just saw it. And here she's claiming right here, I'm Potomac native. Thank you very much. Forced colonization is why my skin tone is so light. That's not why your skin tone is so light. Okay, that's fucked up. And here's why that's fucked up. Because, like, you have your skin tone's so light because most of your ancestors are European. Alright? Most of your ancestors are European. That's why your skin tone's light. Let's not to get into blood quantum, but let's just say, for example, if 1 out of 100 of your ancestors is Native American and the other 99 of your ancestors are European, for example, that you have genetics from, for example, it does not work that way at all, but I don't want to do math with the way it works, so I'm putting it into easier numbers. That, you know what I mean? So just think of the concept with the easier numbers, not that this is an accurate representation of how it would work. But if you're literally one of your ancestors was native, but the rest of them are European, then your skin tone is white because you're mostly European. If 50 to 75 of your ancestors were Native American and 50 to 25 of your ancestors were European, then it would be because of forced colonialization why you could be light-skinned, right? Because my dad's side, you know, that's why some of my dad's side, some of them are dark-skinned, some of them are light-skinned, because of forced colonization. But they have a lot of European ancestry as well, but not just all of their ancestors are white, you know what I mean? In Brittany Jones' case, every single ancestors of hers that is actually documented is European descent that we found. It's European documented. So there's a difference between, you know what I mean, when you are mixed. And if your ancestry is majority Native American and you happen to be white presenting, then yes, forced colonialization is why your skin tone would be so light. But if the majority of your ancestry is not Native American and you're saying that you're only white because of forced colonialism, that is a form of misrepresenting how Native you are. Because the only way for your skin tone to be light from forced colonialism is if you have majority Native ancestors. And she does not have majority Native ancestors. Even if Bill Dale confirmed her Potomac lineage. Does that make sense? I think that's this whole video. Yeah. Okay. So that's also why, you know, people got a problem with her. Let's see what this one says.
Cooper, being in the military skewed my views quite a bit. I actually used to be racist towards Muslims and people from the Middle East because of my military training. And I had to destructure and racify myself.
So I think she may still be, and it's sorry that the volume of that was so loud. Sorry guys, I hope that didn't hurt anybody's ears. But at least she can admit right here that she has some anti-racism to work through, some anti-discrimination to work through, some everything like that. She's recognizing a past history of it, so hopefully that points to in the future she may be able to process this as well. Perhaps, maybe one day, maybe, one day she'll look back on all of this and get it. Okay. Let's see. Did we look at? We looked at that. We looked at that. Is this one related?
Actual.
Okay. The commenter here says Brittany Jones is not indigenous. She's just another white woman exploiting Native Americans for clout. I do believe she is a white woman exploiting Native Americans for her governor, exploiting the identity for the political campaigns, but whether or not she's indigenous, Bill Dale has confirmed that, and as long as Bill Dale, Potomac tribal historian, is verifying her lineage, it's not my place to speak on that.
She's been consistent with updates on her DNA results, and it's going to continue to produce more updates of her DNA results as she's slowly but surely and respectfully going through her reconnection journey. But I'm going to share a small piece of what she revealed to all of us about her DNA results.
A more comprehensive post will be put on my Facebook, but I have to access my laptop to do that, and currently I have a sleepover with about 6 kids happening for my son's birthday. So this is what we have tonight. As you can see, this is one of my tests that I've done. Amerindian up there, that's highlighted in yellow, is for Indigenous heritage. Now you can see there's percentages there. If I was not Indigenous to America, they would not be there. Now we're going to go over to the other aspects, and this is not counting South American Indigenous heritage either, which is on my laptop, not on my phone. Here you can see there's Pima. Now what I did is I actually highlighted the ones I'm familiar with. There's still a lot that I have to learn. I am a mix of many, but not enough of any. And I did find my family in the Potomac Nation. And once enrollment is open there, I will be applying to enroll in my nation. Here's more highlighted. Once again, Ojibwe. I'm aware of what that is. There's other percentages in there that I have to do some more research on. This one you can see a lot of the southern Indigenous heritage. There's the Mayan, the Mexican, the...
Okay, yeah, this is ridiculous. She's claiming she's 91% Mayan and 39% Mexican, 99% Mixed, 96% Mixtec. None of those numbers add up. None of that makes sense. None of that makes sense for what would be your DNA, in my opinion. Like, what the fuck is this? Or maybe I just don't know what I'm looking at. Maybe I don't know what I'm looking at. I do know for a fact that on her dad's side, she does have Mexican heritage, but because, okay, I don't believe she was raised connected to any indigenous aspect of it, because obviously most Mexican people have indigenous ancestry based on the heritage. Not all, because there are some Mexican people who don't happen to have it. But a lot of Mexican, people do have indigenous ancestry, and a lot of them are mostly indigenous descent if you look into their genealogy, right? But not every Mexican person is still connected to their indigeneity. Some of them are completely still connected with their tribe. Then there's a good bit who they may not still be connected to the tribe they descend from, but they still do have a lot of indigenous practices and their teachings and their ways that were passed on to them still. And then some of them, like I know people who are Mexican who completely deny they are Native American or have any indigenous ancestry at all. They are dark skinned Indigenous presenting, I know they're fucking native, and they don't believe that they're native, or and it's not, and it's not even like it would be disrespectful to associate their identity with those of the pueblos originarios. I did not say that right. Sorry, mi español es muy malo. Pero it's like the whole concept of like they genuinely do not believe they are native. So I know people like across the borders with those identity issues, and so I understand that, but it's like I don't know, man. I don't even know where the fuck I'm going, how I got here, but this doesn't make sense to me. Like, I know she has the heritage, but I don't believe it was passed down to her, because in some of her later posts, she was saying, that she was just now finding out she was indigenous. And it's like, if your Mexican side of your family was connected to that, wouldn't you already know that? And you know what I mean? And like, if in terms of the Potomac side, as far as what we saw that was documented, I don't think she found out that her mom's side was native or that she had Potomac ancestry until like 2021, as far as I can tell from what I've seen documented so far. So, based on her posts.
Say the Mixtec, those are all in there as well. I have to look. I don't know what Mexican CV means, or what Miwok is, so I have to do a lot more learning on that. This one has Cree in it. This one has Algonquin, and actually...
So is she like claiming like Algonquin, Cree, and Ojibwe? Is that what she's claiming here? Or is she just like using these examples for no reason? Like, what is the point in bringing all of this up? Is this what she's claiming?
The Potomac, they speak Algonquin. I believe this one is from the...
Okay, there's also... Hold on, guys. So, Algonquian, with a U, refers to a family of related languages and cultures across North America, such as Cree, Ojibwe, Powhatan as well. Whereas Algonquin is a specific tribe and language. It's a subset dialect of Ojibwe within that larger group. Algonquin is a specific subset of the broader Algonquian group. Now, the spelling of this comes from, like, because of the spellings of this and all of that, like, you'll see people talking about that will say Algonquian, but they really mean Algonquian, or vice versa, But, but you have to also consider sometimes, for me, it's whether or not it has an A in it. Algonquian with an A can refer to the in general language family of North American indigenous languages, so Algonquian, but Algonquin is typically going to be specifically First Nations based in Quebec and Ontario, Canada. It's not necessarily going to refer to Potomac or Powhatan. And their language is considered a dialect of Ojibwe and Anishinaabe. So just keeping in mind the difference right here between Algonquian and Algonquin. And sometimes, people will use it or spell it, like they'll interchangeably, the spellings interchangeably, even though they mean one or the other. But there is a theoretical difference as well to consider. But with this spelling, I don't know if they're specifically, like, because they've already said Cree separately, right? So if they were grouping them all together, and they've already said Cree separately, then I don't think they mean Algonquian. I think they mean Algonquin, referring to First Nation of Quebec, Ontario, Canada. That's what I think they mean here. So I think she's putting the wrong meaning of Algonquin here.
East Coast, primarily. The Eastern Algonquin language is said to be extinct, but I am going to be taking language classes in a few months once they open back up. I will be putting a comprehensive...
And mind you, she's not taking Algonquin classes unless she's learning Anishinaabe. She's gonna be taking Algonquian classes if she's learning Powhatan Algonquian, if that makes sense.
Post with the full charts on my Facebook for you to peruse at your pleasure. I have done a lot of research into this. I did not even start participating in the community again until I knew for sure I was. This is not something I claim lightly, and it's not something I pursue lightly. I know who I am, and I'm not going to stop pursuing my family. I'm not going to stop learning about my nation. I'm not going to stop learning in general. And I hope that you guys can join me on that journey.
Where's your receipts?
Okay, so I hope she seems to be very passionate about wanting to continue the path of connection. So I hope, if given Bill's confirmation that she does do that path. I think where she messed up is using the identity for political campaigns before going on that path. And not getting the blessings and doing the work in that path before the political stuff, right? So that's where I think there needs to be some work through, but hopefully, hopefully she does follow through with that work. She did seem to have, the passion at one point of the desire to do so. Let's see. Okay, I think the last one we've covered this video right here. I think I watched it before, in a different live stream, so I don't want to watch it again. Or it says no Brittany Jones for president, and it's just got the lady saying she would not vote for Brittany Jones. But let's see, there's one more right here. Let's see what this one says.
Brittany Jones claims to be an Indigenous woman while actively bullying, harassing, and stalking Indigenous women. When will this stop? If you have been bullied, harassed, stalked, or humiliated by Brittany Jones, the candidate for presidency, please write us, let us know.
So I had no knowledge of any of that, and I've never seen any evidence of any of that, and I'm very curious as to all of that. So if anybody knows about any of that, send me what you got, please, and I'll cover it if you want me to.
No, so we can put these things together and put it into this once and for all. Brittany Jones.
Okay, I think that might be all we got for you. I don't think that this video, because look, I think this is a different Brittany Jones, so I don't think this video is about, this happens to be a different Brittany Jones, so that has nothing to do with this. So now I think we've watched everything. Did we watch? No, we watched this. Is there anything I missed? Yeah. So it looks like that's it there. And yeah, just gonna kind of wrap up everything now and wrap up here, get on with my life. I need to go work and shit, y'all. Basically, what we did today was process the concept of Descendians, the concept of Descendianism, and what does it mean to be Indigenous. And we discussed the different aspects here. We went over different definitions of Descendians from the colloquial point of view, how different people can have their own connotation or their own meaning onto the term, and not only different people but also different tribes could be having their own meaning of what a Descendian would be for them. But what I think everybody can agree on is it's specifically when a person misrepresents their proximity to Native community. They may actually have some valid ancestry, but they lie or misrepresent how close they are to the community, if that makes sense. And typically, often for gain is when people have a problem with it, And so we've also discussed the differences in community versus colonial recognition of being Indigenous. And we discussed how it takes the community recognition to develop the lifestyle, world teachings, worldview, and knowledge required to speak from the place of having an Indigenous perspective, in my opinion. And we've addressed also how how, you know, for example, there are differences for each person based on their experience. So everybody has different aspects of definitions of being indigenous that can apply to them as well. But we did a reaction to an amazing Sandi Boucher video. Please go follow her page. Please go support her. Her work is incredible. Her teachings, I think, are really important to just be out there. We talked about my family history a good bit, and we continue kind of wrapping up the bow here with this Brittany Jones discussion so far with the problems people have when it comes to some of the misrepresentation of her proximity and Indigenous issues. And yeah, if anybody has any information on the allegations of her of her harassing, stalking, bullying people that we saw in that video, you know, if anybody has any information on that, please let me know, because I've never seen any proof of that posted anywhere, so I can't speak to any of that. I don't know. But we've been marinating on a lot. I appreciate you for joining me today and processing this with me. I think it is important. Oh, one more thing. I talked about the Seneca-Maka Algonquian oral history and traditions produced by Raven Brightwater Costello. And it has histories from a lot of different Virginia tribes. That I will link this in the description of the video as well, so you can get more information there. But the Pamunkey video is the one where I mentioned, you know, that my dad, who will always tell you that we've been here over 10,000 years, watched the Pamunkey video. And that's where that reference is from earlier. So yeah, I'll link that later. As well as the difference between Algonquian and Algonquian, you know, things like that. So yeah. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you guys. I'm just processing all of it. I am grateful for the chance to process this with you, and I hope everybody has a great day. Kana na banamun and ana. Bye. Thanks for watching.